We are back for part two, and we're just going to pick up where Chris left off. We'll link part one with part two here so that you don't have any break in the action. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, and we lost Heidi. If she comes back on, then we'll see her if she links back in. Okay. So I left off here because what I wanted to do is I didn't get to put the picture of the Egyptian map where you see the ladder to heaven through the Milky Way to the dog star Sirius, but that's what it represents too. And this represents the Asherah tree, and it also represents this. And this was a hymn that the Sumerians wrote to Enlil, which, Enlil represents Thoth and the father of Ninurta, which, Thoth represents the moon. And so I just thought that was interesting that this represents this, the sextant star symbol, which is a I guess a measurement mechanism, some type of measurement tool with the sun and the moon. And this is the diagram that I've shown before too.
It's a navigational tool. It's a navigational tool. When you're on the ocean, you use a sextant to navigate by the sun and the stars.
Yeah. Interesting how it's the South Pole star, huh? This is...
yeah, that's the base point, but you shoot Polaris and you shoot on the horizon.
Yeah. So this symbol, the symbol of the sextant, which represents Osiris' symbol, and the Freemasons' time and space, also represents this the potential man diagram with all of the gods that represent the pyramid. The sun and the moon, and Set, Thoth, Isis, Horus, Ra. This is the Triangulum Australe, is the rarest of constellations. It's a triangle. This is the nebula. And the Wardaman people of the Northern Territory in Australia perceive the stars of the Triangulum Australia as the tail of the rainbow serpent. And we know the rainbow serpent represents Quetzalcoatl, which stretched out from the near crux, which is the cross, to Scorpius. And here's the cross at the South Pole, and this is the triangulum. So before we we talked about the Thuban star used to be the pole star, and it's Alpha Draconis, and it was closest to the pole in 3942. It was succeeded by these two stars, Kolcheb and Perked, and it derives from Kaf. And the short term is dim one of two calves. And so they are also called the Indestructibles. The Egyptians believed that in the afterlife, this was a place that they could go to. And so they believe that this was a portal, which is the North Star. So the North Star used to be Thuban, but it is now related to Juno, which is the star of Juno, which represents this symbol. It represents this symbol and this symbol, which is Phanes. One of the things that I found interesting was this also kind of represents the clock mechanism and the sextant. It's and it's called a Antikythera mechanism, called the first computer.
Hey.
And it's here we go.
Heidi. We found Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
What a morning. Okay, sorry. Carry on.
This is a highly complex machine with gears and dials and delicate inscriptions that seem to match up with star alignments. So this was kind of like the first computer, and this is something that they found off of this island. So here was Juno, Seashat. She's the female aspect of Thoth, and this is representative of the time frame that one of the researchers at a university, she's done a lot of work, Kate Spence, said that this was around the time that there was a change in the star, and this was the time that Khufu and Kasakimwe, which was Ham, did the uniting of Upper and Lower Egypt. So Khufu was before. He was the one that had the boat, the solar boat, and he was the one where his coffin was empty in the Giza pyramid. But I'm sorry, before Khufu was these guys, both of these are supposedly the merging of Upper and Lower Egypt, which is above where the Milky Way is, and then below. And so I guess it would represent the Netherland or the Netherworld in the abyss. And so, I'm sorry, Kasakimwe is before Khufu because it was 2690, so Khufu was in 2589. So he was after, so it would be around this pole star would be when he became Menhotep II. And they also celebrated the Jubilees, and they wore the Jubilee garments. And if you look that up, I found that quite interesting that that they were tied in that. But yeah, another thing that we're going to look at is Pluto. It has a hidden ocean. They were supposed to launch a spacecraft in 2015. I didn't find when that was, but it's this year. And then here we have Lady Gaga. She has a moon of Saturn. I guess Gaga was a moon of Saturn. It was called that. Distributed by Saturn. Right. And into its own orbit around Solaris and becoming known as Pluto. So that's quite interesting because Pluto is where Hades is in the netherworld, and there's a very interesting connection to that because it's also the crown chakra of the Kabbalah tree. So.
Yeah, Pluto. Something about that Pluto.
Yeah, here was the pictures that we saw again with the raising of the god through the blue lotus flower, which King Tut was supposed to be born from a blue lotus. This is why I'm saying this is because this is what they're doing again. They're doing this some kind of ritual when the planets line up. There's going to be, that's why the Cern has the Birkeland currents, and there is going to be some type of opening of a portal at that time. And here's just a depiction of what it might look like there. Ooh. So here's Cern, Atlas, Alitz, and the LHC. And what they want to do is they want to create the Big Bang. They want to recreate that so that way they can find the god Ra, which is Helios and Saturn. They try to confuse everybody because he has so many names, to confuse everyone. And I mean, we're talking about history from Adam and Eve when they were in the world around 4000 BC. That was a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then. And we have the Bible that we can refer to on events that have happened and things like that. But that's even a long time after Adam was born too, that we can find those writings. And so I refer back to the hieroglyphs and all the oldest artifacts that I can find to try to understand what they might possibly be thinking. But my conclusion is they want to resurrect the sun god, which is Saturn, and they've always worshipped him. And the Romans claim that they are the elitist, Romans. They claim that they are the offspring of Saturn, and so I just find that interesting. They're right across from each other. and how Osiris represented the moon god and the sun god. He was killed and resurrected to the underworld as Hades, as Pluto, and then Jupiter was resurrected in his place as Zeus. And so these tie into all the symbolism, you know, with everything throughout history and what they plan on doing here with all the Saturn worship, all the way from India to Egypt to Babylon. And so I do believe Rome will have some type of connection with the Temple on the Mount. And so that's something to be looking for and to be watching for. So what do you think about that, Tim, about the temple and what they're planning to do, building the temple possibly beside the Temple of the Mount?
Well, I think that's exactly what the main crux today is for them taking. Yeah, I think it's about dominion. Vatican, Rome has always had dominion theology, which they preach that they are supposed to be. They have the keys of Peter, you know, and they're supposed to have the spiritual keys to the spiritual domain, but also the territorial of this world. And then they believe in dominion theology, which means you capture all the nations and give them to Jesus. It's just going to be a Masonic Jesus. And so I think you see Rome setting up itself in Jerusalem on that Temple Mount after, from what I can tell from the Jerusalem trailer and the Dig series and from the extraterrestrial trailer, it looks like they got to take down the Dome of the Rock, is my take on things, because they want that stone. I think that's what came out in the Belly of the Beast show, is that stone and the gates of hell and all those things. I mean, the 9 gates and all that stuff. So I don't see how they build something up there next to the Dome of the Rock, as a lot of Christian authorities have said in the past.
I agree.
So that's what we're looking at as far as politics, you know. Go ahead, Anthony.
You said Belly of the Beast? You
The
said
last
Belly
show
of the Beast show?
Yeah, the Belly of the Beast show definitely is tying together this phallus, navel, the belly. A lot of people commented on the sign of Jonas in the end times, you know, as Jesus was in the grave and for 3 days. But some people pointed out that's also a sign. We're talking about the belly is not the actual, you know, kind of a type of this belly of the beast thing. And it just is so strange after when you watch Benjamin, Danoon was talking about the Vatican takeover of the Temple Mount and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the internationalization of the city of Jerusalem and the two-state solution as far as Israel being divided into a Palestinian and a Israeli state, but with Jerusalem basically as an international city, and this belly of the beast right here being the center of the earth, basically. And that is what I see. I mean, that is pretty obvious to me. That's what we're looking at. Now, Cern and their connection. We did the 369, and we were talking about Cern or Saturn. The sun 6 and 9 was the moon, was it, or what? How's the 369?
The 369 is representative of Saturn, the sun, and the moon. And so this represents like the mother and the father as one.
Yeah. So we were looking at Saturn as the machine or the a-diabetic type of thing, the way that people talk about the black cube and the a-diabetic computer. And we're looking at Cern almost as the 3, and then we're looking at the 6 and the 9 on the Temple Mount, the moon and the sun. That's from the last show, and then we want Anthony's perspective on all this. what you're bringing out, because it really looks like Jerusalem is ground zero, and the Temple Mount is the belly of the beast, ground zero. And they're playing out something here with Cern and the Apollyon and the
Oh, I see.
Mosque.
This is the 6 and this is the 9. 69.
Mm-hmm.
69 is it's the sign of the crab that ate the phallus of Osiris, but it's also the sign of infinity of He, and He represents Saturn. Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Anthony?
Well, just on what you just said, 69 is also the 666 on the Cern logo. So they're taking 369 and using that on the Cern logo. Your discussion of the sextant, the North Pole, Polaris, the Southern Pole, and then hold that picture. That's really key. Look at the Earth, and then on the right it has the wording Earth's equator. Picture relatively close to that arrow the navel, the hole at the dome of the rock into the abyss. What occurs to me here is that they're lining up in Polaris, North Pole, as I said in the last show, to that navel, so that they can get the two to pass through one another. The line from Polaris will pass through the hole of the navel. Like I said to you, Tim, in the last show, relating that to the movie Harrison Ford, help me here.
Which one? The Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah.
The first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're in the Well of Souls, and they have the map of the city and the staff and the jewel, and they line everything up. So picture that process with this extending through the core of the Earth. The abyss, they're trying to tap into the energy at the core of the Earth and then continue to the South Pole. If you look at it from a physics standpoint, you're looking at the magnetic reaction between Polaris and the southern pole of the Earth itself. But they're trying to tap the energy of the core for the purpose of opening this portal. Again, we're all going back to this whole discussion of the electric universe. You have to be thinking in terms of magnetic lines of energy. Everything that you're describing here today has to do with not just plasma, but magnetic lines of energy. And energy can cause things to happen. Once they connect to the Earth's core through that hole, by taking the magnetic north of the magnetosphere, the southern pole of the magnetosphere, and connect that through the Well of Souls in Jerusalem through the navel, they'll have the alignment that they want. It's only going to happen at a certain time. It appears it's going to happen in the autumn time frame, so that would be September. We know that with the Large Hadron Collider, their collisions, their maximum power, 14 tera-electron volts, will happen in September. If you look at that other picture where you have, Chris, you have the Native American standing there holding the spear, and the woman in front of him, the snow on the ground, and the alignment of Saturn, Venus, Mars, and the Earth. You know what picture I'm talking about? The very first one that we ever looked at when we talked about Thunderbolt's project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did I lose you, Chris?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You have that here. You should. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
go to that one with the two natives standing there and they have the inscription on the rock? Now keep going.
This
It's
is it,
like
right?
the one in the center, but it's a standalone. Yeah, but it's the first one, the very, very first one that has just the two natives. Guy holding the spear. He's got the little figure, the man, the Taurus man, on the rock. I think you have just a standalone of that.
Oh,
Anyway,
I probably don't have it.
That's okay. Hold it. Let's not use a lot.
Anthony, do you think that
Yeah.
the center line that's going down, do you think that could be representative? I guess that's the sword of the electric or magnetic lines of energy going down into the stone?
Yeah. Essentially, you're looking at that Berkeley will be linking between the moon and the core of the Earth. And so that actually will go right through the hole, the navel, in Jerusalem at the Dome of the Rock. They have to remove the dome. Tim hit on that last week, and it's absolutely correct. The dome will be removed, and I'll tell you how that's going to happen. But, okay, for the sake of brevity here, let's take the center picture that you're showing with the two blue figures standing next to it. It's kind of hard to tell for people that are watching this, but to the left we have a native man holding a spear. At his feet is his young woman. And if you look at the snow on the ground, we haven't talked about this before. That's a very light covering of snow. The fact that the woman on the ground is not wearing wintertime clothing, she's basically not wearing much of anything, indicates to me that this is autumn. This is the first snow. This is telling us this is September when the alignment takes place. And it fits with the calendar of events that Cern has published. So I'm going to stop, let you guys jump in here.
Well, I just wanted to say something because Tim and I were talking about that stone and how we thought it represented not only, it's the stone, the Emphalos stone, the Philosopher's Stone, the Well of Souls is down there. It's just symbolic of all the mystery religions and occult religions focus. And Tim had said something about sword and the stone, and I think that might be a symbolic representation of that sword and the stone with the Arthurian legend and the Holy Grail, because everybody wants, it's something about that stone, I think, is the key of Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
And once that dome is removed,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're right. The sword and the stone, that legend is if you can withdraw this from the stone, then you'll be able to find the Holy Grail. You'll have the power. The sword is the Birkeland currents, the electric plasma connection between the planets and the Earth that existed during the Golden Age. They're trying to reproduce that Birkeland current to establish that reconnection because they believe that they're going to derive power from that. The power to be able to resurrect their gods. Their spiritual power is what their physics, the Birkeland currents, reconnecting with these planets. They will be able to resurrect those spirits from those planets. Now, the sword and the stone, the sword, the Birkeland current, passes the hole at the Dome of the Rock through the navel. So picture a sword in that navel hole, which leads to the well into the abyss. Well, that actually leads to the core of the planet. That's where all of the energy, the electromagnetic lines of force that surround in a torus field and toroidal pattern around the planet that creates our magnetosphere, that core is what they have to tap into. And they believe that by using Cern to generate the Birkeland currents, they can pass through the navel at the Dome of the Rock and tap into the core, the abyss. They call the core the abyss. And they will then be able to manifest that physical connection to all of the planets and then bring that spiritual energy that they want back into existence, back here on the planet. And they believe they will achieve their golden age again from the 4th dynasty of Egypt.
Yeah. And we were saying
Go
last
ahead,
week
guys.
that all those gates must be, that are all around the world, must be converging right there into that core abyss.
Yeah, I think the gates
Right.
represent the ley lines of energy to flow out from this Birkeland shot. I think when that thing shoots down, and it makes me wonder about ISIS, or ISS, the International Space Station. What what ISIS is going to be doing up there during this Birkeland shot down to
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what the heck that's about now. Now that we got a Venus in space, and
Sure.
and so we got the
Yeah.
2 months of June and September, and is that related to certain alignments of a moon alignment and a solar and a sun alignment, or I mean, I'm just speculating now.
Right. Well, let's go back to the Dome of the Rock and the fact that it sits on a building, on a structure that has 8 sides. The dome has to be removed. And the thing that I want to share in the book that I'm completing, Coalescence, in that storyline, the dome is removed, but it's not removed by the Christians and the Jews. It's actually removed by the Muslims. But it's like a false flag. The Muslims, using the Sesame particle accelerator in Jordan, remember Sesame, open Sesame? They named that particle accelerator Sesame for this purpose. The close proximity of that particle accelerator to Jerusalem, to the Dome of the Rock, that particle accelerator is actually going to be used to remove the dome, destroy the dome, and that is going to flame every Muslim practitioner in the world and cause what we talk about and we read about in prophecy, this battle to start, specifically as related in Isaiah, the destruction of Damascus overnight. There will be the Dome of the Rock destroyed. There will be a attack coming through the Golan Heights by Syria, through Syria. Actually, Iran, but that's a proxy, and we know Israel will retaliate, and overnight, as it says in Scripture, will destroy Damascus. And then the war is on, and all of the close countries that compass Israel will be engaged in that battle, and Israel will, after losing well over 1 million people, will defeat those countries immediately compassing Israel. And ISIS, you mentioned, they are trying to achieve a territory that is outlined on their map that is exactly the territory that will result following this battle, in which Israel regains their original border lines, their original borders. It has nothing to do with going back to the borders prior to the 6-Day War. It's the larger territory that they will gain. That's all prophetic, but it starts with the destruction of the Dome of the Rock, their term here, and it's going to start a war when that's done. But it's actually done by the people that are promoting all of this activity with Cern. It's kind of the ultimate false flag, if you will. So go ahead.
Yeah,
So you think that it's going to blow it up before they build the second temple, or I mean, do you think the Antichrist is going to come and that they're going
before.
to, and then he's going, they're in the 3.5 years, then something's going to happen during that time.
They have to remove the rock first, then they can build the temple, because they want to build the temple on the existing site of the Dome of the Rock. So it has to be removed, but there has to be a war as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think this also adds something. I think that the World War III starts with the destruction of the Dome of the Rock to get the Muslims into jihad mode, and that's when you're going to see all the destruction in the United States. I think you're going to have all the Islamic people that Obama and friends have brought in through the borders. That they'll take down. Well, they'll cause tons of trouble in the United States at the same time, I think. And I think it's very coordinated. And I think Anthony's. We were talking about the 9/11, the Twin Towers, and the Brookhaven synchrotron. And Enter the Stars had done work on the alignments with being connected to 9/11. So you're saying the Open Sesame one is going to basically provide the same 9/11 event for the Dome of the Rock.
Right. We were talking about the fact, or not the fact, but the conjecture that a directed energy weapon or even a kinetic energy weapon was used to initiate the events at 9/11 with the Twin Towers, because Brookhaven is so close in proximity to the Twin Towers, and the timing, the alignments, the redirection of the hurricane that was offshore that was actually drawn straight towards New York at the time that the particle accelerator was activated, and its magnets being able to draw the energy of the hurricane straight towards New York, and then 9/11 hit on the same day. There's a lot of things that lined up. I think the same process will be used with Jordan's particle accelerator, and I don't know the timing on all this. Again, we don't try to predict dates or any of that stuff here, but we just are putting together the mechanics of the machinery that they're putting in place and the time frames in which they're using the machinery, like the Large Hadron Collider and also the particle accelerator now at Sesame. Now, public information says that the particle accelerator in Jordan, Sesame, is not operational yet. However, we know that they're not always revealing all of the information. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have the machine completed to be able to use it as a directed energy or kinetic energy weapon to destroy the Dome of the Rock itself. I think the destruction of the Dome of the Rock will be the Middle East version of 9/11, and it will have virtually the same type of repercussions that we've seen in the United States will happen in the Middle East, and it will trigger this war. But I don't know the timing on all of that. You guys there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did I lose you?
Tim, are you there?
Yeah, I was here. I was just giving somebody else an opportunity because I can talk all day. But it's no, I think and Anthony's third book, Coalescence, I think is going to bring out some interesting things that we're talking about right now. I see that as being the scenario. A fanatical World War III driven by the Dome of the Rock has to come down for the occult members of all these religions to have that Omphala stone. My thing is this June alignments and the September alignments, and of course we're always limited as far as knowing how things align through this belly or this belly button or this Omphalos. I think you could do the moon alignment. I think you could do the moon alignment with the dome still up, probably, with the dome magnifying the moon. But I think it's got to be gone for the sun alignment as the Birkeland, the sword in the stone thing.
It has to be. The Dome of the Rock represents the sun as far as I'm concerned. It represents right now. It's also, it's coated in gold, which is a great conductor. But it's also just a weather shield, and it's symbolic, but it's also a weather shield, and providing their ability to control access to the world of souls. But we know it's been for a long time. It has been said that the dome has to be removed so that the temple can be rebuilt, and we know that the temple right now exists in prefabricated sections and they've practiced building the dome, the temple, and taking it down. And they know that in a matter of days they can actually take the prefab portions of the new temple and put it right there where the Dome of the Rock is. So it has to be removed. Now, June or September, I don't know. I don't know if it's even going to be this year as far as the removal of the Dome of the Rock.
Right.
But it sure makes sense to me, looking at September, with they're going full power at Cern, sitting over the Temple of Apollo, that they are going to use September, and they will use Sesame to take out the dome, and then they will be able to make that connection between Polaris, the navel, the core, and the southern pole of the planet. Now, you know, conceivably, some of the things you were showing earlier, they could cause a pole flip. Some of the things, Chris, you were talking about, you were showing in the ancient pictures, is representative of a pole flip. When you talk about the merging of two gods and the hermaphrodite, you're talking about two poles coming together in the timeline, and then the flip occurring, and now the poles being opposite. So the hermaphrodite is a temporary merging of positive and negative energy, and then separating again in the form of a pole flip. All of the symbols that you have shown, all of the gods, all of the entities, we've talked about this before, this is what the Thunderbolts Project discusses at length. This is going back to the time of Adam and Eve, and then going forward, as you mentioned earlier this morning. We have to keep in mind this is hundreds and hundreds of years of history that we're encapsulating here. And they had all of that time to develop these stories and these gods and these entities to try to explain what they're seeing in the physics realm. They didn't understand the physics, so they assigned human representations, the gods, to what they were seeing in the physics world. And therefore, they could carry, much like an oral tradition in the Native American storytelling, because they didn't have a written history, they had an oral history. You're seeing the same thing here in Egypt, essentially an oral history, but in pictograms, and oral histories of the legends of the gods being retold in order to explain the physics that's playing out in the cosmos and what's playing out with the Earth with its magnetosphere, the pole flip, the changes in the Earth's environment. All of that is being explained by way of these ancient gods. I'm not discounting the fact that there's a spiritual component to this. Certainly there's a spiritual component when we talk about the planets and the constellations, the representations. Those are all interconnected, and I believe that in their occult practice, recreating the physics of old and the old processes of physics, they believe will resurrect those spiritual entities that they want to bring back here and create their form of the Garden of Eden, the Golden Age, here on the planet. So I commend all of the research you have done to the ancients and the gods and the players and their relationships and what they mean. I'm not discounting that at all. Absolutely, you know I'm not. I'm just saying that's an overlay to the physics in terms of electrical energy and plasma influences and the shapes of the plasma that we see on the Earth, but also in the cosmos. And so they both tell the same story. I'll stop there so you guys can jump in.
Well, you know, in Egypt, they were very highly intelligent. They had an electrical source, and even through the Dendara temple, they had a like an electrical source, you know, like a Wi-Fi. Even they could just touch a light and it would just turn on through the electricity in their body. I mean, they had like the whole city electrified, you know, and is a city of these gods, you know, back then through their connections. So I do believe that they had a lot of technology then. And I had some thoughts stirring through my head because I know that the Ark of the Covenant sat on top of the temple on the rock, and the foundation stone. So I was just curious. I know that the Ark of the Covenant, the name Ark comes from Egypt, and the Ark, so it's called Aron, and it's a coffin. That's what it is, and so that that the basically underlining name that you zero in on when you think about Ark of the Covenant is coffin, and it comes from Egypt. So I'm just curious. I know that they use that box to for the electrical energy that was their source of energy in the pyramid. And so I guess what I'm thinking is, and my thoughts are, is do they have a new type of the Ark of the Covenant with Cern, with the internet, with the communications, with the with the invisible energy that we don't see, that's connected to the One World Trade Center, and pretty much all of the antennas all over the world, with the connection with Saturn, because it's like a computer. And so I'm just wondering, is this like a new type? Is Cern an Ark of the Covenant type of thing? With the sun god Apollo's temple here. I don't know. I just have a lot of thoughts going through my head about that type of aspect, and what the new temple is going to look like, because the Bible talks about the abyss, and Apollo coming from the abyss, and the Antichrist, and taking the mark of the beast. And we have this computer system, we have the AI computer system that is this computer is with nature and technical, so it's like a merging of particles and mechanics together. And so we're talking about iron mixed with clay, and the Antichrist rising from the abyss, and we see Mithra rising from the rock, which is Jupiter, and they worship the Jupiter in the temples, which is the abomination of desolation, which represents Saturn. And so that's what they're wanting. They're wanting their god of Saturn to rise again, Osiris, and that's what they're trying to do, and to rule, to rule and reign. And so I guess I was just curious of how the quantum computer connects with all of this, and if CERN does inadvertently and of God, it was lightning, it just blew the whole thing away.
Yeah. Right. Let's go to the Ark of the Covenant, the capacitor, and we've heard that from other sources, that if you touched it, you were electrocuted, you were killed. And therefore they would carry it with wooden poles, because wood is not a good conductor of electricity. If it's located originally on where the Dome of the Rock is now, if it's sitting over that Well of Souls, if it's sitting over that hole, that one rock that was removed to allow access to the Well of Souls, then that provides the opening to the core, to the Earth's core. Excuse me. I would venture to say that there's a great deal of magnetic rock that comprises the Dome of the Rock, that is underneath the Dome of the Rock, that is actually allowing connection, I should say more specifically, a magnetic connection to the iron core of the Earth. So picture this: you have an iron core, it's rotating in an electrical field. It's acting like a generator because of that rotation of the iron within an electrical field. It's generating electrical energy that then passes through the hole in the Dome of the Rock, through that navel. The capacitor, which is basically a battery, is the Ark of the Covenant sitting directly over that opening, the navel. It's absorbing energy from the core, from the generator, charging the capacitor. If you touch it, you're electrocuted. They could pick it up, carry it with the insulated wooden poles, put it in the pyramid, and use it as a battery, drawing electrical energy from that. As you know, that the pyramids are limestone, and they also had granite, which is a fairly good conductor of electricity inside the lining of the limestone. Inside the pyramid was a lining of granite. And you have the ability to take that electricity and cause an electrical discharge, a directed energy weapon, to be created with the pyramid using as a focal point possibly diamond or some other semi-precious stone, or even just gold as the capstone, in order to direct that energy into the cosmos. Potentially, it was directed at Polaris. Yes, the Ark of the Covenant, being a capacitor, powered Egypt, and they were able to tap into that, and they had their snake lights that you've seen in the you're referring to on their stone carvings, the ability to electrify all of that area. And then when it was stolen and taken, you had the Pharaoh pursuing the Ark of the Covenant, and then the parting of the Red Sea and that whole story. So I'll stop there, but I did want to say that the Ark of the Covenant sitting over that opening, putting the electrical energy from the core of the earth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, just to add to this, a visual of contemporary, the Age of Ultron movie has the demigod Thor standing on top of the sarcophagus or Ark of the Covenant, directing his Birkeland bolts through this thing to raise up this thing, that this avatar, to animate this avatar in this coffin. So if we're looking at the belly of the beast and we're looking at the ark over it, and they're looking at animating something from the pits or whatever with their Birkelands, that was the image that I think that connects in the movies to this, what we're talking about.
So is the ark kind of like a projector?
Yeah. Well, the ark is just a battery.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's not. It can't be
just a
used
battery,
as a projector.
No, not necessarily. But the temple, they're building the temple. The abomination of desolation is coming to the temple. So the temple is something to be examined in terms of the structure, the altar, the sacrifices, all of that. Looking at the structure, the configuration of it. You're talking about the resurrection of Apollo. You're talking about back the ancient god from the abyss, and that's the abomination of desolation visiting the temple in Scripture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's jumping out at us big time, what they're doing, and this belly button thing here, this omphalos and this arc and the alignments and the Birkeland currents and and bringing the sun god, their Masonic sun god, Mithras, Apollo, bringing him out.
Sure.
Unreal.
Chris, you had asked about the adiabatic quantum computer, artificially intelligent, and Saturn being a computer, and then Cern. Essentially, that's just the control mechanism, and you have to have that complex machinery, computer, to be able to not only predict accurately all of the alignments that are necessary for this to take place. I mean, a basic computer can do that, but the feature of being a artificially intelligent computer is going to factor into the creation of this beast, the controlling of this beast, the wonders that will be performed by this beast, as well as the control of the population. We've talked about that in other shows. But from a physics standpoint, you need that also for the control of the power. If they're going to tap the core of the planet in conjunction with tapping the magnetosphere. Did I lose you guys?
No. There's some kind of interference.
Okay. Plus, they have to be able to control the torus, that they're going to create, the toroidal field, the donut, which we can look at as a disruption of time-space continuum, a portal, a wormhole, whatever you want to call it. They're going to cause the creation of a toroidal field at Cern. That's really the hidden agenda there. It's not smashing particles that's the big deal. It is the creation of this electrical energy, this magnetic lines of force in the shape of a donut. But they have to be able to maintain that. They have to keep it stable. And that's where that computer also comes into play, because it has that ability to monitor and to control the lines of magnetic force that are derived from this instantaneous explosion, this Big Bang you talked about earlier. It's not the Big Bang. That's for public relations. It's the creation of the torus field that creates the time-space distortion, and they have to hold that open. That's the large one. There will be other portals around the planet that will open, but that's the large one, and that has to be controlled by that computer. It all has to be coordinated.
Well, if you think about it, the Birkeland currents that are in Cern, Cern's a computer, and it's a weapon, and a particle accelerator. And so if you're looking at these Birkeland currents, which was in the Electric Universe by David Talbot, and you're looking at these currents going up to Venus and Saturn, and then the birthing of Mars, which is the god of war. And so Venus, if you think about it, Venus is like the phosphorus planet. It's it doesn't have an electrical magnetic field around it like some of the the planets do. And then so Saturn, you think about it connecting. They were connecting as a pole star, where the pole star is, and where the swastika is in the sky. So they were. That's where the focal point was. It was in the center of the galaxy, and so that's why all the ancients were looking at it. So you see this Saturn computer, supercomputer, connected to Venus, and then Jupiter is behind it. So you have these all, and then Mars is being birthed from it, and so you have these all together. This is alchemy, all together, opening up the doorway. And so that's just kind of what I see there.
If you go all the way back to the first picture that I ever showed you from Dave Talbot's Thunderbolts project of the alignment of the planets and the Birkeland currents connecting to the Earth, that's what they're trying to recreate. They cannot move the planets back into that alignment nor bring them into close proximity to the Earth. But by creating the torus, the donut, at Cern, they will generate, projecting from the center of the toroidal field, so from the center of the hole, the Birkeland currents will be projected out into the heavens. It may be that they go to the moon first. Again, you had a guy up there that showed the Birkeland currents connecting to the moon first, and they were passing through that donut, through the torus, if you want to put that image up there. But you have the Birkeland currents emanating from, let's say, the northern pole of the donut, okay? That connection there is what they're trying to recreate. So hold that picture. That's good. Okay, excellent. Good. That's even clearer. In the center, we have the torus. That's an edge-on view of the donut. And the Birkeland currents are being projected from down below, that white circle down below, from Cern upward through the hole of the donut up to the moon, and then eventually connecting to all of the planets that are at the very top of that image. So you have Venus, you have Jupiter, you have Saturn, you have Mars. They can't create that alignment again, but they can certainly connect. That's the purpose of the moon. We've conjectured that the moon is artificial, that it's a machine. Its purpose is to direct the Birkeland currents to the planets and be able to reconnect them electrically. Once you connect that, you've also tapped into the core of the Earth. And now you have a complete circuit between the Earth and all of the other planets. There are spiritual aspects to that, but I'm just focusing on the physics here. So down below, at the bottom of this image, you have the plasma field, which is really the magnetosphere of the Earth. That green half dome you see at the bottom is our magnetosphere. And what you see up above as the upside down bowl around the moon itself, that half sphere, that is the energy that is created by the projection of the Birkeland currents connecting to the moon, creating a magnetosphere for the first time around the moon itself, and then projecting, continuing from the moon to those planets.
Which these planets are way bigger than ours. Oh, well, no, well, not all of them, but Jupiter is, right? I mean, it's like huge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so underneath, I mean, Saturn, we've seen the
So in
poles
order
of
to,
Saturn
Mhm.
and how they turn. And you know, one of them's the eye. It's like a camera, like an eye. You see one. Now, so one side is an eye, and one side. Which one would be facing down? Probably the
Are you talking about
octagon.
Saturn?
Yeah, I mean the one that shows the hexagram on the bottom is probably the one that's going to be.
That's the northern pole of Saturn, is the hexagon. The southern pole is a spiral. It will be connecting to the southern pole of Saturn through the spiral. And remember, there's a Birkeland current that goes from the southern to the northern pole, going through the core of the planet. The core of Saturn is not an iron core like the Earth. It's a gaseous body. But there is a core to it, and the Birkeland currents are connected. And then from the northern pole, you will go from Saturn to the other planets.
Okay. Yeah, so, okay, now that we know we have the connections, we have the machinery as far as the alignments between the moons and the alignments of the dates and stuff, what do you think now? I'm looking at September 22nd is IX of the IXXI, and September 24th, when the Pope is supposed to address Congress, is the XI, and the 23rd is the one that they say is the in between the two pillars or the Day of Atonement. So Obama and the Pope are supposed to be addressing Congress in Washington on the XI, and then we have that final blood moon of the 28th. And the Dig series definitely showed the mosque with the blood moon beside it in the in what they were showing. Any conjecture over that?
Sure, it all happens in September.
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't want to be a date setter, so don't anybody hold me to this, please.
Well, I'm not trying to force you. I'm not trying to force you into that. No.
Yeah, we're not.
No, but
none
I'm
of
just
us
saying,
are sitters here, but we know that these things are happening at CERN, and that's what Anthony's helping us with to understand how these things work. But when these currents come out of CERN, Anthony, are we going to be able to see them, or is it going to be invisible?
well, as I have answered that question to other people that have asked me, picture the northern lights. That is plasma, highly energized plasma that is excited because of the energy accelerated particles, the protons that come from the sun and strike our magnetosphere, causes the excitation of the ions in the magnetosphere. So we see the magnetic energy, if you will, in the form of northern lights. We will see something very similar to that, but a focused stream of northern lights in the form of Birkeland currents. I think we will actually be able to see the twisted helix of the Birkeland currents, just like the Hubble telescope already has provided us pictures of Birkeland currents. They look like ribbons in the cosmos. We will see those same ribbons composed of the twisted helix of Birkeland currents coming from Cern up to the moon, and then from the moon out to Saturn, and then eventually to the other planets. So yes, I certainly here on Earth, at least the Birkeland currents between here and the moon are going to be visible by everybody on the planet. And quite possibly that's going to be September.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know, it must have happened. I mean, it happened before because they have this symbol all over the world where, you know, this this symbol, it's in every country. It's in, you know, all over the world. The Thunderbolts Project, you know, found all of these symbols, and this is what it's referring to, is this same thing happened before with this energy. And I think that this was during the time of the resurrection of Saturn, whenever he was, you know, cast down, and or it could possibly, you know, be during the flood, you know, during the time or after the flood, you know. I think that it wasn't during some type of alignment for sure, but, you know, they know what's going on. And
picture that, what you're showing there, but also the other one that you showed where it was a more detailed view of the plasma, the Birkeland currents going up to the planets from the Earth. That's what we're going to see again. Yeah, that picture. That's what you're going to see again. It won't be white necessarily. I think it'll look very much like the aurora borealis because of our change in atmosphere now. Yeah, there it is. If you want to know what it's going to look like, that's a simplified representation. I think the other one was more representative of what people saw in the ancient times and existed in the golden age of the 4th dynasty in Egypt, and what they're going to cause to happen again. If we're talking about an abyss, we have an entity that is locked away. It requires this energy to break the lock, to break the jail, to break this guy out. And that's what the energy is there for, breaking him out of the abyss, which is, as we believe at this point, to be in the core of the Earth. So they're tapping the core. They're in the abyss with this energy.
So would you call this the key to the abyss?
I would say the Birkeland currents are the mechanism that turns the key. I think the key, if you have to have a key, you have to talk about the adiabatic quantum computer being the control mechanism or a key itself. But the energy that's required is in the form of Birkeland currents, which are generated by the collision of particles at the Large Hadron Collider, which then forms that magnetic donut, that torus. And from the torus, in opposite directions, just like the representations of black holes in the cosmos, where you see two opposing streams of synchrotron energy composed of gamma rays and X-rays emanating in opposite directions from a black hole. Picture exactly the same thing on Earth, a torus with two opposing streams of energy coming out, one going out towards the moon, the other, which I haven't mentioned yet, will go down into the core of the planet. You have to have those opposing, in physics, those opposing lines of force that come out, because that is caused by the circular movement that we see in the Large Hadron Collider of the particles that generate the magnetic lines of force in a toroidal shape of a donut. When you create the donut, you have the two opposing lines of energy that are projected out from the hole, from the center, if you follow me. When you, and this is a side note, when we look at the Earth's representations of black holes in the cosmos, those are not forming the core. Okay, that's the center of the donut. The black hole, that ring around the black hole, is the donut. The core is the plasma. The core is dense plasma, causing those energies to emanate in opposing directions from the core. There's nothing solid there. It's plasma. Same thing at CERN. I want people to understand this is the hidden agenda. This is the physics that they're not talking about at CERN, and this will be in my book. They're creating a plasma core. Yeah.
Is the plasma like part of the birthing of something? I mean, is that what it's used for?
Yeah, in normal science, you have learned in school, they talk about plasma being the fourth state, okay? Fourth dynasty, fourth state of matter. There's forms of matter. And where actually, and that's the gravitational model that they've shoved in our face. The electric model, the fourth state doesn't exist as plasma. Plasma is the first, the prime, if you will. The first state of all matter is plasma because you start with energy, you start with electricity, and then you form plasma as the first form of matter from energy. When you convert energy to matter, E equals mc squared in the gravitational model, the first state of matter is plasma. That's what they're creating with the Large Hadron Collider, and they are not telling the public that.
Well, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Well, thank you very much.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, because that makes sense. It put together a lot of pieces for me.
Oh man, hooking up a black hole with Birkeland currents, shooting into the dome of the rock on Falastone. Very interesting. Oh, jeez.
That's right. That's one of the streams coming from the torus, go through the navel after the dome of the rock is removed. We'll go through the navel, and we'll go to the core of the planet. The other stream goes to the moon. Real simple.
Yeah, and it goes with the whole thing about the electric, the animating the beast Frankenstein with electricity. All the symbolism in all the shows we've watched, it shows animating the beast through this strange plasma electricity kind of thing. And here we have it, you know.
Yeah, that's what these
So
guys are
the moon,
wanting. They're wanting to raise their Antichrist.
There he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
why was the moon? Why was the moon created? If it's artificial, if we just say, okay, that the moon is artificial, just for the point of discussion, the moon was created because it didn't exist. There, the moon didn't exist in this alignment. Okay, in the golden age, the moon's not there. That's Mars, and then you go from Mars, you go to Jupiter, or Venus. You have Saturn, and then you have Jupiter behind it, as you correctly pointed out earlier today. In addition to the sun, so you bring in an artificial body to act as a receiver of the energy from CERN, and then as a distributor, a hub. This is key. Moon is the distribution hub of the energy, just in a computer network. The distribution hub of the energy to the other planets.
So the moon is a distribution hub to the other planets.
The image in Star Wars of the Death Star, have you thought about that? Is that connected with the moon being an artificial satellite distributing energy, or would you not?
Yeah, I think it fits. Yeah, I think it fits. It's not a Death Star in the sense that it's projecting, the directed energy weapon in Star Wars,
Right.
for storytelling purposes, but it is directing energy to the other planets. So sure, Death Star and the moon's no difference.
Yeah, that's interesting because, Thoth, he represents the moon. He's the phoenix, and he's going to rise and brings the ashes to the altar of the sun god. Hmm. Well, you gave me a lot to think about
No,
anyway.
if we want to know the future, we look at the past, because the history is cyclic, it's repetitive, it's poetic, and you're seeing it because you are, Chris, with all of your research, you are showing us the future by looking at the past. And, September, we look at 369, we talk about Tesla and he talking about 369, we talk about, the schedule at Cern with their maximum power in September. We look at the Pope coming in and his worship of the sun. You just got to say, okay, something's going to happen in September. Who knows what? I'm not going to say. I can't pin it down and say definitively, because then I would be a prophet, and I'm not going to be a false prophet. But something's going to happen that is going to be way out of the ordinary.
Oh, yeah.
Way out of the ordinary for us. September has to be.
Well, it's funny because it all started with Chris's investigation of the ancient Egyptian 9 of the Ogdod and Enid, and and now we got the circle of 9 with the Vatican, and it's funny how it started way back there. She stuck with it, and it blew up into all this stuff, and then we got the whole Saturn connection.
And like I said earlier, don't necessarily look at the symbol of Saturn as 666. Look at it as 999.
Yeah. Interesting. That's,
Yeah, I just wanted to understand, what's going on. I mean, God literally woke me up, and I started to say, "What's going on? I don't understand." And I realized that I lived in a world that was pretty much fake, a world that is built on a certain system, and everything connected to it was, pretty much not what I thought it was, and just understanding, the symbolism, where the TV came from, where, what Project Paperclip is, all these underground military experiments, and how they built everything up to this point with CERN and what their goal is. And the Bible talks about it all. The Revelation talks about it, and the coming of the Antichrist. And I think that a lot of the Bible prophesies that the Jewish people that don't believe in Jesus Christ as the Messiah, but those who have not done the abomination of desolation, they're going to wake up, and they're going to call out to the true God and understand that Jesus is the Messiah, and wake up one day. And I think that one day is soon. And, we're not here to condemn anybody, and any, religion, to me, in my opinion, is that it was all made, in this world for a reason. And so we're not here to argue with anybody or anything. We're just here to put out the facts, and that's what we're here for, to expose the dark like Jesus Christ tells us to, and help people to wake up, and help people to wake up to what's going on in the world inside of these religions and the dark rabbit holes that they go down to, because I don't want to be lied to. I want to know the truth, and I think Jesus wants me to too. He has the Bible there for us, and His Word, and He's coming for His people. And so, it's good to understand everything. I mean, we would have to literally sit here for days and days and days to explain, how we understand things from each of our perspectives. But the big picture is that there's a lot larger picture than before the Bible was written. There's a lot larger picture of, who wrote it, why they wrote it, why Jesus had to come and die on the cross for us, for our sins, and so that way we can be a part of God and be a part of heaven. And
you think about it, it's very interesting. Between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, you got the whole history of the angelic realm and the fall, all in that one little space that's not explained. And so
Yeah.
you
Well,
got an enormous amount of stuff going on that we are not aware of.
well, God revealed a lot of things to me, and I'm glad that He did. I love the Lord, and I'm so glad that I understand a lot of things because I want to understand these things, that the planets represent the fallen angels, and they do, and the planets in the universe represent the underworld. They represent what's above is so below. But these fallen angels also represent all of these deities that are changed the names of them over time, and these fallen angels want to be worshipped as God, and they do worship them as gods. The elite worship them as gods. The Vatican worship them as gods. And Jesus tells us, don't worship the sun and the moon and the stars. Not to bow down to anyone on the earth. And and so that is a warning to people. But see, they say they're the bloodline of Saturn. These people are the bloodline of Cain. They're not like us, these people that are from the way on high up into the elite and the richest of the rich, and the people that are running this world. I mean, look what's on the dollar bill. Look what it's all about. I mean, there's been people that have broke those things down, and people are starting to wake up because of the internet, because of the communications, and because people are seeking the truth, and because God is waking people up to see the bigger picture of things. I mean, things were tough for me to swallow from the Bible. There's a lot of things throughout the Bible that I started to understand that was really tough for me, but then it made me understand just how powerful Jesus Christ really is, and how we are not to look at things in a certain point of view, when we are to focus on Him as God and to realize who He is. He's not compared to anyone else, and He came and died for our sins to be the gate to heaven, the true gate to heaven. And so many people are being deceived, and that's another reason why we're here, to help people to understand the truth of what is coming, and why it's coming. And it's coming because of the evil. It's coming because of these people are evil, and they worship Saturn. They want their Antichrist to come. They're building his temple. They want him to come and rule and reign for them, and that's who they worship.
Amen. That's awesome. Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. And when's your book coming out, Anthony?
Well, probably the end of June, the way things are going. If Chris would stop researching, I could stop waiting.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. You might as well just start releasing volume 1, 2, and 3 then.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going to be incorporating what Chris has brought to us, and she's going to be encapsulating some of this for me so I can put it into a novel form. But, yeah, a lot of it is physics again, and it's a storyline, and it's the trilogy, so same characters. But I can tell you they're going to Jerusalem, and it's going to involve the Dome of the Rock, and it's going to involve what I said today. But adding into that is all of the evidence that Chris has presented in an encapsulated form so that it doesn't block down the story. But, yeah, I think by the end of June I'll have this thing ready to be released, and it of course should go on into other books because there's so much information. But
yeah,
Chris, I just want to echo what you said. It doesn't matter the research that you've done. It doesn't matter the stories that I tell in my novels. The whole purpose really is just to ask people to stop, look at the world differently, ask some questions, seek the Lord on their own, establish that relationship with the Lord, because there's only two directions you can go. You can go with the Lord or you can go with Satan. And that's, for me, what all of this stuff boils down to. All of the research and all of the writing just comes down to our mission is just to ask people, look at the world differently and make your choice.
Yeah.
Amen.
And you
Awesome.
know, and God loves everybody. He died. You know, Jesus died for sinners. And you know, like my little one, she's my little cancer survivor, and she says, "Mom, God loves. He wants to hear from the worst person. You know, he wants to hear from everybody." And that just broke my heart when I heard her say that, because it's true. The Lord does want to hear from everybody, from the person who sins the greatest from the least, you know, because he died for all sins no matter what they are. And once we understand that and we know the love of the Lord and we ask him to be our Savior, then we're sealed by God. Then, you know, Satan can't have our soul, and that's what he wants. He wants everybody's soul. He wants to be God and he wants to rule. But, you know, thank God that I do believe that he's going to deal with everybody. He does deal with he dealt with me, you know, he dealt with my husband, he dealt with my children, and he deals with everybody. So I do believe that he is dealing with everyone. He's working in people's hearts. There's going to be, you know, more people waking up, and I do believe at some point he is really going to unleash the power of his Holy Spirit on people during the end times, like the Bible says, and I do think that is coming soon. I do.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up at this point. And, you know, we did this just wonderful, Chris and Anthony. And going to Jerusalem from Cyprus. So we're jumping off from Cyprus, heading to Jerusalem. That
and
dome
Heidi,
of rock.
too. Where's Heidi? Are you still there, Heidi?
No, Heidi fell off. She was having all kinds of problems with her computer, but we'll get back with Heidi. We got more sword. We got more sword in the stone stuff to do, and more Arthurian legends, and we got more stuff on that end. That's for sure. But thank you very much, and we'll just sign off here. We're going to hook up part 1 and part 2. We'll put a point where the part 1 fell off, and then we'll say where to jump off to part 2, and we'll link the two together so people can follow it better. But thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Always good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.